Welcome back to Coaching Eddie, episode 2. This is Eddie. He's being coached. If you don't know the story, watch part 1 and you'll understand. But we have a quick update. Eddie played, so what happened?
I played 3 home games, and I busted out on 2 of them, and I made money on the third one. 3 things that I noticed was that...
Wait, and you made 50...
Oh, yeah, the buy-in was 50, and I made $35.
36
so
bucks.
36 bucks. So it was
not bad. But then you lost $200.
Yeah, the first 2 ones, I lost everything.
All right, so one of the things I want you to do right now is Eddie's a really detailed person. He's better at this than me. But even if you're just starting to play poker, I think it's incredibly important to build a habit of, and this is something that's my fault for not telling you, but tracking your results. So Eddie should be tracking in a simple spreadsheet or on a piece of paper when he played, what time he started, what time he ended, what time he bought in, and what time he left. Later, we're going to add more complicated things to that. But for now, I just want the simple metrics of buy-in amount, cash out amount, and how long you played.
Okay.
So we can determine hourly rate and really see your progress over time. Like, all right, we're down 250, and then we can see historically how much money you've made. And I think it's really important for beginner players to do this because a lot of players, like some of you who've read this, you're probably not accounting all those little hours that you put into the game as like the work that you did. But if you do this from the very beginning, you could actually see like, oh my God, I put 2,985 hours into poker. You know what I mean? So I think it's a good thing to start. So we're going to start doing that.
I'll start documenting.
But what did you actually, like, what were you struggling with? What did you want to know more about when you played your first 3 games?
Well, what I noticed is that after 1 hour of play on all of those games, my brain just began to get distracted.
Okay.
So like my focus was at 1 hour limit.
All right. So first of all, as a beginning player, I don't expect him to have focus for like 10 hours or anything like that. I think players don't understand, or people don't understand, that human attention is not designed to have that level of focus for such prolonged periods of time. It's something you have to work on. Yeah. It's something that we're going to want to improve, but it's something we're going to want to like take into consideration too. So like if you start finding yourself making dumb decisions after the hour, I want you to start tightening up and not trying to get bored and just be like, all right, why not? That's why I did that whole thing of like, if you're not thinking, you're gambling. So like if you just toss out chips and you have no reason why you're actually doing it, that's gambling. So that's why when we do, and that's probably what happens to you after the hour. I caught him with King 5. That's all I know.
Well, because what I started to see is that people were, they were going to showdown, and then the cards that they were turning over, a lot of it was junk.
Right.
It was trash.
So they were showing trash. So you're counter strategy. Like, let me show trash too. Yeah. But that's like me having fun. So like the whole mindset is like, I'm here to play poker. I'm here to make money. I could still have an enjoyable time having good conversation, engaging with people. But the fact is they're making mistakes and we want to maximize off those mistakes. So it's not like, okay, they're playing a lot. Let me see why not also. It's let me punish them for playing a lot. But we'll get into that later.
Okay.
But what else?
The other thing I noticed was I really didn't understand card strength. Okay. Because what I was playing was suited connectors, aces, kings, pairs, and face cards high.
Okay.
With rag cards.
Okay. So, and what do you mean? You just didn't know if a hand was good or not?
Well, like, I didn't know if, just what to do. Like, I know, well, if you have pair of aces pre-flop, it's great. But what happens afterwards when 2-3-9 comes out on the flop? And then nothing happens on the river of the turn,
right,
turn of the river.
This is an interesting thing. So this is one of those things that, for those of you listening who are obviously, this channel gets a lot of players from beginners to really advanced players. I still believe that the average way poker players are taught about hand strength is fundamentally incorrect from the beginning. So you're taught from the beginning that there's certain subclass of hands that are good, and there's a class of hands that are bad, and there's a class of hands that are okay. So it's like bad, great, marginal, right? Okay. And hands in poker are, while they have finite value, it's all relative. That's what you need to understand. It's the concept of relative hand strength, right? So if you're playing Zuli, right? Zuli, who has a very straightforward, tight, aggressive style. Yeah. And let's say you raise with ace jack, right? And Zuli re-raises you. You have to think to yourself, ace jack's card strength relative to the hands that Zuli can be raising with. how many hands are you actually ahead of versus how many hands you beat?
I don't know.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, that's the whole point of relative hand strength. So
Okay.
Zuli, as a very tight player, if she's 3-betting you and you have a hand like Ace Jack, it might be better just to fold to her because the hands that she's playing are probably going to be better to you. However, if you're playing against me, I'm raising you quite often with a ton of trash and all that other stuff. So you might, in that moment, right, have Ace Jack. I might be raising you, but you still are probably likely to have a better hand against my relative history because I play so many hands, right? So it's relative to the person.
Okay.
Now this is people usually stop there. They make card strength this relative thing where it's like, oh, Blake raises a lot, so I have Ace Jack. Therefore, I can call Blake because I'm ahead of that player's range. But there's other variables that make it relative, and it's not just relative to what I have, but it's relative to your ability to play that hand. Meaning, if I know that, you know, you're a little bit worried or it's past your hour and you're not thinking that correctly, and you raise and I re-raise you and you're like, you know what, let me call against Blake. And you call me, because you don't know how to navigate or think strategically about the flop, you kind of feel a little bit lost.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not only just your hand's stronger than Blake's, it's how can you play it on later streets. And a lot of beginners get into this whole thing where it's like, oh, they you know, buy like a range chart, which in my opinion is one of the worst ways to conceptually start. I think they have value if you're like playing in certain spots online, stuff like that. But range charts are not good because they teach you a finite way of learning how to play the game. And I think it's, while people make the argument that it's okay in a beginner, like a range chart is basically, you can raise from early position with these hands. You can raise from this seat with his hands. It ignores the concept of relative hand strength, right? So it ignores the concept that our opponents are constantly doing different things. And based on how they play, the strength of our hand increases or decreases. So what I want you to start doing, this is the first thing we're going to add to your thought process, the first layer, right?
Okay.
When you have your hand, right, you check your cards, and let's say somebody else raises you or somebody else is in a hand with you. I want you to think based on what you know about that player, right? Is your hand better or worse than theirs?
Okay.
That's all I want you to start thinking about.
Then that means I need to start tracking.
Right. Well, you don't have to go crazy. Like if this player plays a lot and this player never plays, and you've got a hand like pocket nines, and this player just has been folding all night, and they finally re-raise you, you have to make the assumption that, you know what, pocket nines are probably not beating this player.
Okay.
But if this person's calling every other hand and is involved in every other hand, and you've got pocket tens, you have to make the assumption that you're ahead of their range of hands.
Okay.
See what I mean? So we're just thinking relative.
It's such a wide range.
Right. We're thinking relative to our players' dynamic, constantly being relative, being relative. And the first thing is like the relative to value, but then there's other things like, you know, your skill set as a poker player. Like I might call a completely wider range because I know that, yeah, I might be way behind right now, but it doesn't matter because this player is pretty bad and they're likely to give up on most turns or rivers and I could exploit them there. So there's all these relative concepts that you miss if you just look at the game in a linear fashion.
Okay.
So that's the first exercise. So next time, that's all I want you to do. Is when you're at the poker table, just all I want you to do is look at your hand and think to yourselves, is my hand better or worse than what my opponents are?
Can I take shorthand at the table?
If you think you can do it, it's gonna be very hard at the beginning. When you're first starting off, taking shorthand notations and notes, not easy.
Is it rude?
Like, it's not rude. You could take out your phone and do whatever the hell you want with it.
Can I take a piece of paper out? I mean, like a pad? Because it would be... Actually, I could do it on my phone.
Yeah, do it on your phone.
All right.
But I don't want you to... It's kind of like this. Like when I used to teach psychology at CUNY, I used to tell my students, like, stop trying to take notes about everything that I say. I'll give you my notes. Just listen so you can experience it's the same thing with poker. Like if you're so concerned with writing everything down, you're going to miss out on the dynamics that you're going to use to figure out people's relative card strength.
Okay. So tell me what I need to do. What I need to do next.
So I'll remind you before you play, but right now what we want to do is work on the concept of relative
hand strength.
Right.
Relative hand strength.
And what does that mean?
It means how the cards that I have, how I can play that relative to the playing style.
Kind of good. It's a little bit more advanced. You just jumped up, but it's how your cards are relative in terms of strength. Meaning, if you have Ace King and this player never, ever, ever raised the entire night in 5 hours, and they raise, ace king against their range is not as good against the player who raises every other hand.
Right.
See what I mean?
Okay.
That's the whole point. We're making assumptions in this game. If somebody never plays, we're making the assumption that when they do play, they're operating logically and that they actually do have a strong hand. If a player always plays, we're making an assumption that they don't have aces every single time.
Right.
It's like we get aces 1 out of every 220 hands, like half of a percentage of the time. So what's the possibility that somebody has aces 10 hands? It's not.
Right.
And that's the first layer of information that you use to make a decision. And then it's, their bet size, their bet amount, their nonverbal behavior, their style, their approach, their tilt, so on. It's 1,000 other dynamics. But it starts with understanding the concept of relative hand strength, right? And if you can get that, you can start to make better decisions because you can identify who's a looser player, who's a tighter player, so on and so forth.
All right. Should I read any books? Should I be playing online or?
No books. For now, I want you just to practice that concept. So the problem is this, I want to just give a byproduct, but the cash game fix is for people that are beyond Eddie's skill set. It's for people that have been playing poker for a while and have a problem with their game. Eddie hasn't been playing poker at all, so I have to kind of bring him up so he has some sort of thought process and then have him take the course, and you'll see this remarkable change in him. But for now, I just need him to understand this relative aspect. So we want to take it layer by layer and piece by piece. I think players overwhelm themselves when they play, try to do 1,000 things at once, and it's just not, think about position, think about pot size, and it's just like, what, everything. All I want you to do is play exactly how you played with this concept of relative hand strength, and then we'll start adding layers.
Okay, so don't play online.
No,
Don't
just
read poker books.
play again here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Play. All right. Yeah, it's totally, because I did try playing online on a few websites, but it's totally different.
And it moves quick.
It's totally different.
I mean, there's a big difference between online poker and live poker. And I can talk about thousands
Oh my
of
God,
differences.
it's not the same. I mean, maybe the mechanics is the same.
The game is the same.
It's
The
not
fundamentals, but poker is poker, whether you play online or play live. But the information is different.
Yeah,
and the way you process information is different. Also, online poker, for you beginner players, every once in a while, players will only play online, beginner, always online. And the problem is they're used to seeing the game from a top-down approach, meaning they can see the table, they see the stack sizes, they see the bet amounts, and then when they actually sit down live, they're completely overwhelmed because you have to count stack sizes, and it's not everything so linear and easy to read, and so on and so forth.
I didn't notice that.
But all right, so we'll start with this concept of relative hand strength, and we'll start to move forward.
Okay, cool.
All right?
All right, sounds good.
Cool. What else? Yeah, if you want more coaching, Eddie, schoolofcards.com/value. Sign up for our email list below. We're going to be doing maybe do some challenges where I bring you in here to play Eddie heads up for stack. We have some surprises that Eddie doesn't know about, but we'll film it later.
Cool.
See you guys later. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe. We are releasing between 2 to 3 videos every single week. Also, make sure you head over to schoolofcards.com/value. The link's below in the description. It's basically our value email list where I do random webinars for free once or twice a month. I also answer questions, submit hands, and we release videos that we don't always release on YouTube. So make sure you check out schoolcards.com/value, enter your name and email, and I'll keep you up to date.